What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Welcome back for more SPTV coverage of the Danny Masterson criminal trial live from Los Angeles. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Today was the direct examination and cross-examination of some police officers. And this is the brutally boring part of the testimony, because these police officers have no independent recollection of anything that occurred 20 years ago. And all they are doing is testifying as to what is in their police reports. And the only way they know what's in their police reports is by reading their police reports. And so the examination tends to go, did Jane Doe 1 say X to you? And he's like, I don't recall. Would it refresh your memory to look at the report? Yes. Okay, please look at the report. Did that refresh your memory? Yes. Did Jane Doe 1 say X, Y, and Z to you? Yes, she did. It's brutally boring, monotonous. I would say naively pointless testimony. I'm sure there's some point to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be being done. But let me do this, guys. Since I don't want to assume that everybody watching this video has already watched my afternoon update. Let me get to what occurred today that was actually most explosive, most incredible, most newsworthy. Because honestly, the police testimony is all related to things that the Jane Does and their corroborating witnesses have already testified to. We've already heard the important stuff. Now, from the police, we're hearing, what was the report that you wrote in the conversation you had with Jane Doe 1? Anyway, it's excruciating stuff. I think you guys get the idea. Okay. In my lunch update that I did, I told you guys that Scientology's attorney, Vicky Podboreski, showed her hand in a way that I can't quite figure out if it was intentional or unintentional, that she had been leaked almost a complete copy of the discovery file that the prosecution in the Danny Masterson criminal trial turned over to the defense team. Well, only one problem: Vicky Podboreski doesn't work for the defense team or for Danny Masterson. She works for David Miscavige and Scientology. So let me read to you. My version of my notes were a little unclear. I had a lot of typos. I'm going to borrow from the version of the notes that were published on the Underground Bunker blog, because I reviewed them, and they are clear in the areas where mine weren't. So let me just read this to you. This is how court started today. Deputy DA Mueller. This is to the judge. This was a hearing before the jury was brought into the room. The people became aware of an issue mostly last night. There was an email that was sent from Vicky Podboreski on May 2, 2023 to our assistant DA, James Garrison, as well as our bureau director. And the subject is listed as false reports of stalking by the Church of Scientology. In the email, Ms. Podboreski indicates that during the retrial, Deputy DA Mueller asked questions to Jane Doe 3 that were intended to elicit answers he knew to be false. That the witnesses have filed dozens of reports claiming that the church has stalked them, that Podboreski met with LAPD Chief Moore and filed on behalf of Scientology a series of complaints with the LAPD, specifically that that Detective Vargas has left open numerous and false reports by the witnesses. Not one of the reports has turned out to be true, and that Mueller, Deputy DA Mueller, knows there is no merit to the reports. Okay, I can see that my MacBook thinks I'm trying to talk to Siri at the moment. Let me make sure everything's going good. Yep, everything looks like we're going fine. The judge interrupts at this point. What are you asking for? Deputy DA Mueller says, well, along with the letter, there were links to files. In the attachments, I don't want to say all of our discovery, but a large amount of our discovery was attached to these files. Emails between law enforcement and victims, text messages, police reports, photos. We weren't able to go through all of the attachments, but it's extremely troubling that all of our redacted discovery that we turned over to the defense is now in the hands of Scientology. Now, at this moment, Judge Almeida said, hold on. And I thought she was about to admonish Deputy DA Mueller for, I don't know, crying about something he shouldn't be crying about. Like, it was a little confusing. She literally interrupted him. Hold on. To then ask Philip Cohen. She goes, are you sharing discovery with the Church of Scientology? Cohen says, no. Judge Almeida says, then how do they have it? He goes, no idea. The Judge Almeida says, then we're going to issue an order to show cause, but for after the trial to find out how the discovery in a criminal case ended up there. Mueller also describes that Scientology has asked the chief, the LAPD chief, to open investigations of LAPD detectives who testified in the trial. Detective Reyes, who now her married name is now Detective Miape, had some concern about testifying. By the way, Detective Miape, aka Reyes, did testify this afternoon, although she's not done. Judge Almeida, are you referring this to law enforcement? Deputy D.A. Mueller, yes. Scientology is alleging that during their testimony, the detectives, Detective Miape, and I believe it was Vargas, during their testimony in the prior proceeding, that means the first trial of Danny Masterson, there was a ruling that they're not allowed to refer to it as the first trial. They have to refer to it as the prior proceeding. Scientology is alleging that during their testimony in the prior proceeding, the detectives intentionally testified with a bias against Scientology. What a dick move by Scientology. And the church is asking for an investigation into their inappropriate testimony. Judge Almeida says, I'm not sure there's any jurisdiction for the court in those issues. The only thing that causes this court concern is if criminal discovery has been shared with non-parties. The court will issue a protective order that no discovery should be shared, redacted or not. She adds, this doesn't affect the defense case and work they do with investigators and paralegals. Deputy D.A. Mueller says, based on this email, I did inquire with Detective Vargas if he was aware of any reports of harassment that he had determined to be false. And there are none. So in other words, Scientology's lying when they say all of these claims of harassment have been found to be false. And Deputy D.A. Mueller knows that and is eliciting this information from the Jane Does anyway. Totally false statement. But what else would you expect from David Miscavige and his minions? He says there are none. He did supply, in other words, Detective Vargas did supply me with a log, and I will provide it to the defense, that has to do with one of the complaints submitted by Jane Doe 3, where there was some investigation by an animal abuse team, and I will turn that over to the defense. Judge asks if they wanted any other action. Deputy D.A. Mueller says, we are looking to get some kind of protective order and follow-up, and then the judge basically says, okay, you write up the order that you would like me to approve. There was a slight amount of further discussion about this, where it became clear that Deputy D.A. Mueller is planning on putting some of the attorneys on the defense team, or even some of Masterson's prior attorneys, it wasn't entirely clear, on the stand to testify as to how these files wound up in Scientology's hands. Guys, I get a lot of questions as to why is Scientology supporting Danny Masterson? Is Scientology funding Masterson's defense? And the comments that I want to make on those on that subject in general is Scientology and David Miscavige do not care about anything other than themselves. And I'm not under the impression that Scientology is paying for Masterson's defense, but I am under the impression that Miscavige is watching very closely and micromanaging how Scientology is treated in the Masterson trial. So it is a total Miscavige move to have his attorneys and representatives of him to interfere in the proceedings in the Masterson case, just to complain about how Scientology is being discussed and treated and regarded. And you have to imagine that Danny Masterson is probably quite horrified that David Miscavige and his agents continue to create the impression in the minds of the jurors. Now, to be fair, the jurors were not informed about all of this morning. Not only was this discussed outside of the presence of the jurors, but the judge was very clear that nobody was to bring this up in the presence of the jury. But you have to still imagine that Danny Masterson is going, why in the world are you guys shitting where I'm trying to eat? Like, all it's going to take is for any of those jurors to watch some of these videos against the instructions that they've been given by the court. But there's no way for the court to monitor or regulate or enforce the instructions about not reading any media or videos about the trial. All it would take is for any of those jurors to, I don't know, watch one of my videos, read one of Tony Ortega's blog posts. ABC7 is going to be doing a piece all about this. And it's going to be more evident to them that Scientology is continuing to interfere in this case, obstruct justice in this case. And Danny's like, I'm just trying to not go to prison, guys. Stop shitting where I'm trying to eat. If I were Danny, I'd be absolutely furious. Now, Vicky Podboreski, Mike Rinder, I've speculated, Mike Rinder has confirmed that Vicky Podboreski is essentially the paid go-between between David Miscavige and Danny Masterson's defense team. Now, there's a degree of speculation there because neither I nor Mike know for 100% certain. But Mike would probably, if I had to guess, if I had to put words into his mouth, he would probably say 90% certain. Because remember, Danny Masterson might be sort of fighting for his life here in a way, not his life literally, but, you know, close to a life sentence. You know, Danny's facing 15 to 45 years in prison, and that might be the mandatory minimum if he's convicted. That's probably not quite a life sentence for him, but you know what I'm talking about. So he might be essentially fighting for his life here. But from David Miscavige's perspective, he's just a Scientologist who's gotten in a lot of trouble, who should have Scientology's best interests at heart, even ahead of his own best interests. And so Miscavige would not hesitate to screw up Danny's case to protect Scientology's so-called good name. Do you know what I mean? Oh, there was another update here that I didn't even get to because the judge herself had something that she wanted to go on the record with. And let me see. I hope I can find this because I don't want to. Yeah, hold on. Hold on, guys. I'm going to find this. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. Judge Almeida, after this entire Vicky Podboreski thing was put to rest this morning, Judge Almeida says, okay, the court has received 2 letters. The clerk of the court has received 2 letters. One is from Reverend Skip LaRue. That's the fake reverend for hire that I had a little altercation with in the hallway last week when he showed up with one of Scientology's hate propagandists to make sure Scientology's religious rights weren't being infringed upon in the trial. So Reverend Skip LaRue actually sent the court a letter. And one is from, she said, like L.G. Gilroy. Now, I believe Jeff Augustine has actually dug up who this guy is, and what I saw that Jeff Augustine posted was remarkable. I'm not going to touch on it unless I have an opportunity to do a live stream with it, a live stream about it with Jeff later this evening, because I want to make sure I truly understand it. The first letter from Mr. LaRue is about the incident that occurred last week, and Skip LaRue wants to know why Judge Almeida publicly addressed him in the courtroom that day and asked him if he was affiliated with Scientology. Apparently, Skip LaRue feels that his religious freedom was infringed upon by, God forbid, having to answer a question of the judge in open court. Now, it has been determined after the fact that Skip LaRue actually lied to Judge Almeida when he said he was not affiliated with Scientology. It turns out Reverend Skip LaRue, or Minister Skip LaRue, has actually been working for Scientology for close to 25 years. By the way, the judge, in her discussion about these letters, said she was referring the matter to law enforcement for follow-up. I found that to be very, very interesting. Okay, so he wanted to know, and Mr. Gilroy, or L.G. Gilroy, or whatever it was, he was sending a letter on behalf of, and I know I have this all completely bastardized, the Ad Hoc Religion and Justice Committee. I know I didn't get it right. And Mr. Gilroy wanted the court to know that he had a real serious problem with the court's rulings about the Scientology evidence being permitted, the expert testimony from Claire Headley, specifically the admission of the Scientology expert, and how this raised a bunch of prejudiced talking points against the religion of Scientology. Again, if I'm Danny Masterson, and Danny Masterson was at the table when all this was being discussed, the jury wasn't there, but Danny Masterson was, I would be like, David Miscavige, you son of a bitch, keep your business out of my business until this trial is over. But Masterson doesn't have the ability to actually say that. He's got to sit there and take it. He's got to put up with all this nonsense from David Miscavige, because David Miscavige is really the one pulling the strings here. You know, in the Scientology bubble, Masterson would be considered in a very low condition. He would be in a very low Scientology ethics condition, and he has no place whatsoever to speak up that somehow he's being inconvenienced or put upon by the actions of David Miscavige and his agents, such as Vicky Podboreski. Okay, so that's just a recap of the excitement from this morning. Guys, okay, one of the funniest things, okay, I want to do this in sequence. Here. Okay, one of the funniest pieces of testimony after the lunch break was Officer Schlegel. Actually, he's supervised, Detective Supervisor Schlegel at this point. He was Officer Schlegel, 20 years ago. He was the first person who was testifying to the fact that he had absolutely no independent memory of the conversation he had with Jane Doe 120 years ago, and that his entire testimony was just based on reading the police report that he wrote from 20 years ago and regurgitating testimony based on what was already in that report. Now, the crux of the testimony the defense is trying to elicit from supervising detective or Detective Supervisor Schlegel is that he never included in his report any mention of a firearm. According to Detective Schlegel's report, there's no mention. Jane Doe 1 never made any mention of a firearm. Jane Doe 1 maintains that she absolutely did, and Schlegel just didn't include it in the report. That's really why Schlegel is on the stand. There's no other reason for him to be on the stand. And the funniest part of the testimony is when Cohen was trying to get Schlegel to testify as to his skills in taking victim statement reports and how he does them and how he conducts them. And he asks open-ended questions and gives the victim ample opportunity to give a full answer without interrupting them. And he goes, Detective Supervisor Schlegel, would you ever interrupt a victim to... And Schlegel interrupts Cohen. Schlegel interrupts Cohen and say, no. So it was basically like, Detective Supervisor Schlegel, would you ever interrupt a victim who is complaining about, no, I would not. Let me finish the question. Would you ever interrupt a victim who is complaining about, and then he had an opportunity to finish the question. Oh my God, guys. Schlegel is completely worthless as a witness. There was another thing that Schlegel did where, remember, his testimony is basically, as a distinguished and accomplished and skilled supervising detective, I would never omit the mention of a firearm in a report. And he's like, are you absolutely sure? Is there any way that you could have possibly omitted mention of a firearm? And he goes, well, if I did, it would have been a brain fart. That's not the answer Cohen was hoping for. Cohen was hoping that you were going to say, there is literally no way I could ever neglect mentioning a firearm if a firearm was mentioned. Instead, he got, well, it could have been a brain fart. And the other funny thing that Schlegel admitted to, and I mean, I'm making fun of him, but at least this was an honest piece of testimony, is on the police report that Schlegel filled out, there is a note that a certain detective sat in with him during this entire interview. And he says, I actually have no memory whatsoever of there being a detective there. And you go, then how can we either believe this report or your memory? And the other thing, they asked him, do you remember, was it really busy that day, in the precinct? And he's like, oh, it was very, very busy. And like, well, how would you even have any recollection of whether it was busy or not? And he goes, well, because otherwise I wouldn't have been taking the report. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, it wasn't my job to take reports. That's not my role. The only reason I was even doing it is because that means everyone else was busy. And they're like, well, if it was really slammed and a victim came in to make a report, how would you even do that? And he goes, well, they would have to wait. And by the way, Jane Doe 1 waited like 5 hours. And you had, sorry, I had a big burger before I sat down. And so, yeah, so Schlegel basically admitted that this entire process of taking Jane Doe 1's report was done where he was completely swamped. There were people coming up to and from the desk as he was trying to talk to Jane Doe 1, who at many times had to just go sit down and wait for him to become more available to talk. He had phone calls coming in and out, but we're supposed to believe that because Schlegel didn't mention a firearm, that now Jane Doe 1's just making it up, and therefore she's probably just making everything up. That's really what Cohen wants us to believe. Okay, so Schlegel was done pretty quickly, relatively speaking. And then the next detective to testify was Detective Myers, aka, what did I say before? Miape. And guys, I get all the names of these detectives mixed up because we've not had an opportunity. Like, I can't even keep track of which ones are male and which ones are female. And her testimony started out with her testifying to things that had absolutely nothing directly to do with the case. It had to do with her job in general. And then they played us like what felt like an hour of a recorded interview between the detective and Jane Doe 3 from 20 years ago without any briefing to the jury or the people in the gallery as to why specifically we were watching these interviews. And it was just kind of a weird afternoon of testimony, to be honest. And then on top of all that, we got out of court a little early because they decided, let's just, I think they just said, let's pick it up tomorrow. You know, I think Philip Cohen had to finish at 3:45 and we only had a few minutes left anyway. And we just finished watching all these videos and they were getting ready to start, you know, because now the line of questioning that began to Detective Myers, aka Miape, was basically like, we just watched a videoed interview and now they're asking her questions about the interview. How did Jane Doe 3 appear to you during the interview? And you're like, what the fuck? We just watched the interview. Anyway, I'm sure the jurors share my frustration about this portion of testimony. But who knows, guys? I mean, what do I know? I grew up in a cult, guys. I don't know anything. And that's it, guys. It was a strange day of testimony after lunch. Before lunch, man, things were hip hop happening and cruising. I am still under the impression that the people are trying to rest their case by the end of Friday. I am still under the impression that the defense is not planning on calling any witnesses. So I'm still under the impression that we might get closing statements all day Monday and that jury deliberations may begin Tuesday. I'm not entirely sure whether we're expecting to hear from, is it Kathleen from Canada tomorrow or Friday, but I'm guessing Friday. We'll have to wait to see. Okay, let's tackle some super chats and then we'll wrap this up. Rock Slammer says, what does it mean to file something with a yawn? Rock Slammer, in Scientology, there's a policy letter called ethics protection, upstats and ethics protection, something like that. And it says, if you are someone who is considered a high producer in Scientology, you're getting your job done, you're getting the show on the road, you have good statistics, you're making money, you're getting people into Scientology. If someone writes a report on you for having done something wrong, that report gets filed in your ethics file with a yawn, which means no other action is taken. There's another part of the policy that says, and start an investigation on the person who wrote the report. And there is no carve out in the policy for, but what if it turns out the report was accurate? So this policy that talks about ethics protection and filing it with a yawn creates an environment and an atmosphere where you simply don't write reports on people who are considered upstats or high producers or opinion leaders or who have ethics protection. Because if the ethics officer is, really doing his job, you're the one who's going to get investigated. So you just don't write those reports. So that's what the phrase file something with a yawn means. Okay, Jerry Nodine, aka Sarasota Jerry. Hi, Aaron. Maybe there's another Operation Snow White that infiltrated the DA's office to get info for Scientology. Jerry, I would never rule anything out completely, but I think it's just much more likely that someone from the defense leaked it. I've seen some comments that doubting that whether anyone well, whether Philip Cohen or Sean Hawley would ever actually take the risk of leaking information like this. It really could be anybody in the defense team. It could have been Danny Masterson himself. Who really knows? I don't claim to really know, but I think the most likely solution, the most likely answer is that it was someone on the defense team. Okay, let's see. I get all phlegmy when I talk really fast for many minutes on end. I was watching a random video today about Louis Farrakhan. It did not mention his ties to the Church of Scientology, but they must be known. A commenter said he was N Theta. Yeah, I really do question how many people fully understand the partnership between Scientology and Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. But I want to repeat this. Any current or former members of the Nation of Islam who would like to speak with me on my channel about this crazy partnership between the Nation of Islam and Scientology, please reach out to me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com because I would love to dig into that further. Dave Bowen, thank you so much for doing all this. Well, it is my pleasure, Dave. Thank you for watching and thank you for the super chat. E.G. Johnson, criminal trial, quite different from a civil trial. Yes, 100%. 100% different. Okay, and believe me, there's a civil trial coming on the Scientology harassment stuff that the Jane Does have been subjected to. That civil action and trial is on hold pending the outcome of this criminal action. There's also a grand jury investigation into obstruction of justice by David Miscavige, Scientology, and Danny Masterson with respect to this criminal case. And I would not be surprised if we see further criminal action taken against Scientology for obstruction of justice. That's why I can't believe Vicky Podboreski is doing this stuff, continuing to do stuff like this. Okay. Red tar for me. The amount of lies never ceases to amaze me in the Danny Masterson camp. You never know if it's Danny Masterson or David Miscavige. Masterson is not sorry for what he did, only sorry for getting caught. Well, I think that's a very accurate description. Thank you, Red Tar, for me. Mrs. C, $20 super sticker. Thank you very much. Wes Grant, possibility that showing they're closely watching behind the scenes, that it's a show of strength intimidation to the jury, almost we're watching and taking notes. We Grant, I'm not sure if that explanation rings true for me because the jury actually doesn't know about what's going on right now. And I think this is just David Miscavige acting like the boss baby that he is. Blown for Good is in the chat. Mark Hadley, welcome to the chat. Cracker Liquor himself. Yeah, I'd love to do a chat tonight with Mark and Claire about the Vicky Podboreski stuff, but they are not available this evening, which is horrible, horrible news, Mark. If plans change, you know how to reach me, bro. Okay, Olga N. Between the leaked discovery and the letter from Jane Doe 1 to Scientology reporting the assault is game-changing. By the way, I'm starting to get live notifications now. Keep those likes coming, y'all. Yeah, well, guys, we got 3,600 people watching right now. If you're watching right now and you haven't yet hit that like button, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It seems to help send out notifications to other people who haven't got the notifications yet. So that would be awesome. Okay, let's see. Uh-oh, Ryan. Got to be careful here. Watching you navigate difficult topics, handle hiccups, demonstrate personal humility, and not being petty to even the bad guys makes me reflect on myself as a man and a father and want to be a better person all around. Thank you. Oh, I got through that. Without breaking down. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. I sort of had a hint of where you might be going there, but I made it through. Thank you very much. Tarkina Meyer, we need to get your attorney friend Zach on to discuss the implications of this discovery fiasco. Yes, I did send Zach a text earlier today asking if he was going to be available for a chat. I have my notifications turned off right now, but I haven't seen a response from him yet. But if he does get back to me, we will do a chat about it. And if not today, then tomorrow. Thank you, Tarkina Meyer. Always good to see you. Okay, Kimber Smythe. Do you think someone on the defense attorney may have a hidden camera so David Miscavige can watch live? Oh my God, I only wish that were true. Because if that were true, then it would open up the door to the possibility of someone getting caught doing such a thing. I personally don't think so. It would have to be in the glasses because you're not allowed to have phones in the courtroom. You can have laptops, but laptops usually don't have forward-facing cameras that I'm aware of. Meaning, like they face towards you, but they don't face away from you. So let me think. And I have seen the bailiff actually inspect the glasses of some people in the gallery because he suspected they might be recording glasses. I mean, these guys do not mess around. And if you were an attorney who chose to abuse your privilege of having your phone on you to do such a thing, and you got caught, I mean, I don't know what the could you be disbarred for something like that? Could the penalty be that severe? Would it be who knows? So Scientology would have to have an attorney willing to risk that. And I just don't know what the chances of that are, which is why I tend to say, no, I don't think this is happening, but I wish it were, because, I'd be on the lookout. I'd be snitching like a mofo. I'd be like, bailiff. I would not hesitate. All right. Care for JC YouTube. Jurors take their oath seriously. I don't think they are watching YouTube. Well, I hope they're not. I don't want them to be breaking the rules. I just know that if I were on the jury, I probably wouldn't be able to keep myself from hunting around, thinking, oh, what harm could it do? I don't know. I'm just speaking for myself, but what do I know, guys? I grew up in a cult. I have no moral compass, apparently. I mean, that's what Scientology says. So anyway, Jay Dice. Aaron, if you were Danny, you'd be a sociopath. You couldn't be that cold and monstrous if you tried. No offense. Yeah, I hear you. It's an interesting little academic, that might be like a thought experiment to put yourself in Danny's shoes and try to get to a headspace where you've convinced yourself you haven't actually done anything wrong. And I swear to God, I think there's a chance Danny might actually be in that headspace, that he doesn't actually think he's done anything wrong. And I don't know, maybe that's sociopathy. I don't really know where you draw the line between sociopathy or psychopathy. And what's the other one? People like to say, I don't think narcissist is the word I'm looking for. But anyway, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Thank you for the comment. Thank you. Addiction Mouse. Thoughts on Cruz Shakira rumors? I think it's just clickbait headlines. I don't think there's anything to it. Shakira has an actual career, and I can't imagine her wanting to be Mrs. Tom Cruise the Fourth. I mean, she would become a laughingstock just for accepting the role. So I don't think there's anything to it, but I guess we'll see. Pat Shore, no matter what the outcome of the trial, do you think the Church of Scientology will kick out Danny Masterson? No. If he's found not guilty, he's definitely not getting kicked out. Even if he gets found guilty, I don't think he gets kicked out, because then they would lose the whole Masterson family. And there's a lot of them. I mean, the Masterson family and their extended family members comprise about half of all the Scientologists in the greater Los Angeles area. So, no, I don't think Danny's getting declared, believe it or not. Kitty Mom, good work. I'll send some beverage money on PayPal. All right. Well, since you mentioned it, I'll say there's many reasons to do super chats, and we love the super chats. Keep doing super chats. But if the reason you're doing a super chat is to help me with the expenses of being in Los Angeles, you should know YouTube takes 30% of super chat donations. So if that is your goal, then you might as well send those super chats, if you will, to PayPal or Venmo. If that's your goal. I'm fine on just doing the super chats, but YouTube takes that money, man. YouTube takes it. All right. How do I hide that thing? There we go. Okay. So let's see. Did I lose my place or not? I don't think I did. All right. Let me scroll down. Jay Dice, I hear to for dub Detective Schlager as Detective Cringe. I heretofore dub Detective Schlater as Detective Cringe. Okay, that one makes sense. Thank you, Jay Dice. I'm probably being meaner on him than I need to be, but it's like if you have absolutely no memory of the incident and all you're doing is essentially reading off a page, and maybe this is what I should ask my attorney friend Zach Morgan about. Just admit the damn document into evidence and let the jurors read it. It's a total waste of time. At least it feels like a waste of time. Inigo Montoya gives a super chat, and my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. I love that one. All right, Dan Mosqueda. Is there really an anonymous mega raid on the Church of Scientology on 27 May globally? I DM'd you the picture from Twitter. Dan, I must have missed that. I don't know if you DM me on. Oh, you said you DM me the picture from Twitter, but did you DM me the message on Twitter? I don't remember seeing that. I don't know anything about this, so I have to claim ignorance because I haven't heard about it, which means I haven't seen your message. I haven't seen the screenshot. And what would they do? Like, what would that mean? A mega raid? Now I'm curious. I'll have to check it out. Carly Zabetti, thank you for the super sticker. All right, scrolling on down. Let's see. I'm only 8 minutes behind on the chat. Inigo Montoya is back for more. Can I request to be dead filed to get off the mailing list? Don't want to send aftermath cards, but will if I have to. They just skip traced me again. So Inigo, here's the funny thing. You cannot just request to be dead filed. You have to exhibit the behavior that L. Ron Hubbard said would get you dead filed. You have to send in some angry, antagonistic response, and then they're supposed to automatically dead file you. That's one of the reasons why sending in Aftermath Foundation business cards into Scientology using their business return, Scientology's own business return envelopes is so effective, because that is sort of considered an antagonistic gesture, and it should get you dead filed. Now, if you call them up and give them your name and address, since they already have it, obviously, and then just start like talking to them about OT3 and the clear cognition and L. Ron Hubbard's real military service history, you might be able to get yourself dead filed that way. That's how it's supposed to work. But Scientology sort of hesitates to dead file people these days, because if they did, everybody would end up dead filed. And then who would they mail to? So anyway, those are my thoughts, Inigo. Best of luck to you. Marjan Kekavusi, love Goldie, our queen. Thank you both. Goldie is the moderator of all moderators, never to have been out moderated. Goldie has never lost a round, just like Chael Sonnen. All right, Amy DeVore, met Aaron in court. He's just as great in person. Well, Amy, I think I know which one you were. That was yesterday, right? And it was great to meet you in court as well. Yeah, there was a bunch of people in court yesterday. Court today was actually very empty. Even Danny Masterson only had 4 people in his little section. And in the other section for the entire rest of the court, there was only maybe 4, 5, or 6. But, you know, the Jane Does have finished testifying. So all we have left now are police officers, and you know, there is another Danny Masterson victim who's going to be testifying. She's not one of the charged Jane Does, charged victims in this case. In fact, I guess we can't even call her a Jane Doe, because she does go by her real name, Kathleen. And Kathleen from Canada was assaulted by Danny Masterson back in 2000, and she's supposed to come, last we heard, she's supposed to come and testify as to what happened to her, just as a witness, not as a named victim. And I'm starting to wonder whether we're actually going to hear from her. If we do, it should be Friday, but I guess we're going to find out. Okay, Alicia Friedman, longtime watcher, first-time caller. Will Scientology getting a hold of the discovery and whatever the investigation into it uncovers be able to be used as evidence in the Jane Doe's civil trial? You know, Alicia, it's possible. The thing is, the civil trial has to do with harassment and stalking, and I just don't know if Scientology getting a copy of the discovery in the Danny Masterson criminal trial counts as harassing and stalking. I just don't know. It very well may. It certainly doesn't seem like it can help. But I guess we'll wait and see, guys. Okay, let's see. What does this say? MW, are super chats and donations via Zelle Venmo covering your travel costs? Well, MW, we're pretty damn close to covering the cost, to be honest. I was really surprised how many people had sent donations to cover the travel costs. Obviously, the longer I stay here, the more it costs. And I am looking to stay another 8 days. That's the estimate. So if the people do rest their case on Friday, and if the defense doesn't call any witnesses, we should expect Monday, court's closed on the weekend, obviously. Monday should be an entire day of closing arguments, and then over to the jury for deliberations. So I think last time, I got to double check, they deliberated for at least 3 days. But that was when they resulted in a hung jury and a mistrial. I'm sort of optimistically hoping the jury deliberates for 2 days, so Tuesday and Wednesday, and that they announce a verdict on Thursday. And as of right now, I'm planning on checking out of the hotel on Thursday. So we'll see. But yeah, I hope I answered that question, MW. Okay, let's see. Andre, thanks for the updates, Ron. It would be interesting to hear from your lawyer friend, Zach Morgan, if there's an ethics violation under the California bar by giving discovery to Church of Scientology lawyers. That is exactly what I wanted to talk to Zach about. And yeah, so fingers crossed. We'll do that chat either tonight or tomorrow. But actually, yeah, anyway, tonight or tomorrow, unless something else goes on. Okay, Susan Whalen. Regarding notifications, I had to change mine by clicking the subscribed button on the channel and choosing all. Now I am getting all of the notifications again. Well, Susan, that is the procedure for selecting all notifications. Did you have to unsubscribe and subscribe again, maybe? But yeah, I mean, that's how you do it. And also, if you have notifications turned on for YouTube, but you have notifications turned off on your phone, then of course you're not going to get the notifications. So that's something to keep track of as well. We Grant, Kelly Copter done some good stuff tonight. Hype. Oh, did she have a new video up on her channel? I mean, you're saying tonight, but for me, it's only 5 o'clock and change right now. Oh, I love Kelly Copter stuff, so I'll check that out this evening. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, Kimber Do Smythe, thinking 007 in the briefcase hinges. You really can't count anything out, honestly. You really can't. Carly Zabetti. Thank you for all you do. Mailed you a Aaron support great video. Well, thank you so much, Carly. I appreciate it. Oh, it was so funny when I was walking into court this morning. One of the bailiffs. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I'm using the right word. In the courthouse, on the floors of the courtroom, there's sheriffs and officers and police everywhere. Who's the bailiff, guys? Is the bailiff the guy who's in charge of the courtroom? Is the bailiff the guy who's in charge of the entire floor? Is any officer assigned to the courthouse called a bailiff? I'm confused on this. But as I was going through the security line to get in the 9th floor, a bailiff who I had not seen or met before says, "You look taller on YouTube." And I gave him a good laugh. He was teasing me. All right. Noel Blue. Finding someone recording in court would be the perfect opportunity to put Scientology snitching culture to good use. Keep up the good work. Yeah, absolutely. Professional Scientology snitch right here. Larissa, you keep saying if only one juror says he doesn't trust women, the case is lost. Isn't that a serious flaw in the juror system? And it's just random. It is a flaw. It is a feature of the jury system. I don't know, like if one were to study the entire theory of our jury system, whether this feature would be considered a flaw, or is it just a feature? They say you are to be judged by a jury of your peers, not a jury of your peers who don't have any biases whatsoever. My personal bias in this case would go, oh yeah, that's totally a flaw. But I'm also willing to recognize that it should be difficult to convict someone of something they did 20 years ago for which there's not a lot of physical evidence. We want it to be difficult to convict people of those things, of things like that, in situations like that. In this case, I believe the prosecution has put on a case that clears the hurdle of reasonable doubt. The fact that it could take just one juror to hold out, I understand why you're saying it's a flaw, and I don't want to push back on that too much. But in some ways, it's also a feature of the system, and that's just the way it is. But I appreciate your sentiment and the super chat. Okay, Kat and Maggie, I use super chats mainly so I can nag you into restaurants and seeing my screen name. There you go. By the way, on the way back from court, I actually stopped by Kohl's to try and get a friend starting the stream. And it turns out Kohl's doesn't even open until 4 p.m. So I had to come back to the hotel, throw down some sliders and some fries. And who knows, maybe I'll go back. I mentioned that because once I find something I enjoy eating, I tend to stick to it. I'll go to the same restaurant and order the same thing every single day. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going to Kohl's every evening and ordering the USDA prime beef double dip with a side of macaroni and no coleslaw. The coleslaw wasn't great, but the macaroni was great. And they've got some good draft beers there too. So anyway, I think I got a little off topic there, but thank you, Kat and Maggie. All right, Suzanne Oliver. Any update on the letters you were trying to get? Oh, I think you mean the reports that I was trying to get that were attached to the letter that Jane Doe Wen sent to the International Justice Chief. It turns out those reports have never been submitted into evidence because the only one who has those reports is Jane Doe's mother. And Jane Doe's mother is still a Scientologist, and she's no longer cooperating and has never turned over those reports. How about that? Mr. Blue Sky, the word psychopath comes to mind. Well, there you go. Thank you, Mr. Blue Sky. Lisa Marchbanks, what do you think David Miscavige is doing now that he's found out on SPTV that words are being removed or altered from sexual assault reports? Nothing. Scientology doesn't have any particular liability relating to this directive or this order or this policy of censoring certain buzzwords out of reports. Miscavige, I honestly don't. I don't think that's one of the things Miscavige particularly cares about. That's my opinion. Thank you, Lisa. Always good to see you in here. Bella Lada. It seems to me that Scientology breeds narcissistic sociopaths. Well, I think that is a definite possibility, Bella. I think that it is. Jennifer L. I wonder if that fake priest had a hidden camera in his Flavor Flav size cross. Maybe that's why he sat in the witness's line of vision. I wouldn't put anything past the Church of Scientology. You know, the more you guys mention this, the more I think it might actually be happening. I think the bailiff needs to actually start looking even closer at glasses and necklaces and briefcases. Yeah, I'll see if I can mention that to somebody. Okay, Scarlet Begonias, off topic, but love the Princess Bride reference. Impressed you could quote it, AA Ron. Yes, and I haven't even seen it in like 15 or 20 years, and I was still able to remember that. It's amazing how certain things just stick with you. Thank you, Scarlet. Holiday Arnett from Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam. Our religion is about love and unity. Whites can't attend services. How does Nation of Islam square this with their group and mixing with a mostly white group? Am I wrong? Holiday, this is one of the reasons why I want to talk to a current or former member of the NOI to have them explain to me how they have explained away this relationship with Scientology, which is at least by actual statistics, 98% white. It doesn't make any sense to me. But, you know, none of this stuff really has to make sense. You know, there's ways to do mental gymnastics to just explain away just about anything. There seems to be no real limit to the amount of crazy, stupid bullshit you can get people to believe. So many examples. There's just so many different examples. All right, Fran Lafreniere or Lafreniere. I'm hoping I see the Church of Scientology lose their tax exempt status within the next 25 years. I think that will occur. I'm in my 70s. So if I leave this body, I'll be sure to check SPTV to catch up. Well, there you go. I think there's a very high likelihood that they will lose the tax exempt status in the next 10 to 15 years. And that just depends on how long they can drag this stuff out. I think we'll see criminal prosecutions within the next 5 years for federal crimes, actual real serious shit. Jack Stevens, where would one find those comfortable looking black shirts? Amazon. I get all my shirts on Amazon. Even my t-shirts I get on, even my Under Armour t-shirts I get on Amazon. I do not do clothes shopping. I get all my stuff on Amazon. Amazon even has that, what do they call it? The Prime Wardrobe, Amazon Prime Wardrobe, where you can select a bunch of items and they'll send it to you and you can try them on. You can send back the stuff that doesn't fit and they only charge you for the stuff that you keep. I've been doing that for years, except shoes. I buy shoes at brick and mortar stores. I do not buy shoes online. Okay, Courtney Favette. We would love to see a video on Church of Scientology lower ethics conditions, please. Courtney, I've been meaning to do this. And I have some great ones. I have some great examples of lower ethics conditions, particularly liability and doubt are the real meaty ones that I could do videos on. And it's just a matter of time. I will get to them. And they're glorious, you guys. People must wonder when Scientologists say, oh, yeah, I got in trouble. You go, what does that mean you got in trouble? Until you've seen a set of lower ethics conditions, you don't actually know what it means to get in trouble in Scientology. And it really is fascinating. So coming soon to an SPTV channel near you. Red Apple Productions, $4.99 super sticker. Thank you so much, Red Apple Productions. I think we're getting close to the end here. Andreas Romualdo. Canned Spam Act. Requesting getting off mailing lists and not being removed is illegal, and they would be fined if they don't remove you. Andres, I'm not an expert on this, but I think the Church of Scientology as a religious organization, I believe, is just not under the same rules as the commercial, as a commercial enterprise. Somebody might disagree with that, but because violations of the Canned Spam Act can result in serious financial penalties, and Scientology's never been subjected to those penalties. And I feel like if that was an option, it would have happened by now. That might be a naive assumption, but there's a lot of people out there who would like to see Scientology get what's coming to them. And I feel like if it was just as simple as violating the Canned Spam Act, we would have already seen it. But maybe someone else can look into that, because I mean, you make a good point. It's just, I'm not sure it applies to Scientology. Okay. Spin Gal 8. YouTube keeps telling me to edit my question. Why is Scientology so publicly supportive of what's his face? So you're talking about Danny Masterson. Scientology has not come out and made any statement of public support against for Danny Masterson. Now, I guess they have come out and made statements against the accusers. And I guess that is a statement of support for Danny Masterson. I sort of differentiate the two. They've never come out and said, we believe Danny Masterson. They just sort of shit on Leah Remini, and they shit on some of the Jane Does. Jane Doe 3 appeared in an episode of one of Leah Remini's episodes of her television show, Scientology in the Aftermath. The other two charged Jane Does did not. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't actually feel that Scientology has come out to publicly support Masterson. They're just in damage control mode. That's really anything they're doing that seems to be protecting or defending Masterson is really being done to protect or defend themselves. Miscavige doesn't give a damn about Danny Masterson. That is for sure. Libba Z, you can't admit police reports as evidence. Well, there you go, Libba. I mean, that is the simple answer. And even as you say that, I go, yeah, that reminds me of what I've already heard. It's why the police officers have to sit up there and testify. But how silly is it that the report itself can't be admitted as evidence, but the police officer sitting there and reading the report and then saying what's on it, and then reading the report and then saying what's on it, that's evidence. I mean, to me, it's stupid, but what do I know, guys? The system is the system. Brett Grace, do you prefer Cole's to Felipe's now then? I certainly do. Cole's is without question superior to Felipe's as far as the sandwich goes. As far as the atmosphere goes, as far as the experience. Now, Felipe's had some awesome desserts. I haven't seen any desserts. So Felipe's has like a big display food area. Cole's doesn't have that kind of thing. I've never asked Cole's if they had desserts. Cole's is definitely my speed. Felipe's is not. So thank you, Brett. Always good to see you in here. Okay, we really are getting close to finishing up here. Lenny McKee, why isn't L. Ron Hubbard sorting this out after purposely leaving his physical body behind in 1980 to take care of Scientology in an external state? Lenny McKee, thank you for the super chat. L. Ron Hubbard causatively dropped his body January 24th, 1986. Was it 24th or 26th? I think it was 24th. And he dropped his body so that he could pursue upper levels of OT research and to move off to Target 2 and get Scientology going on another planet. L. Ron Hubbard was not supposed to take care of Scientology on planet Earth. That was supposed to be left up to us. I would not be surprised if David Miscavige starts claiming to have established telepathic communication with L. Ron Hubbard, and if he begins announcing cleared planets to shame the Scientologists of Earth for not having done more to clear Earth, while L. Ron Hubbard is off probably in the Alpha Centauri star system, clearing planet after planet after planet. Guys, that sounds pretty crazy, but it would not surprise me in the least if Miscavige starts doing some shit like that, because I think he's running out of cards to play. Okay, Mega Pint Molly. Do the PIs use camera pens? Check the pens. Well, we actually know that Scientology's PIs do use camera pens, because one of the private investigators that Mark Headley busted in Las Vegas one time was recording him with just that. So yeah, they definitely should check the pens. Lane Berlin, Kelly Copter also did a great edit of the SPTV Moonman intro. SPTV's intro and ad game is so freaking professional. Oh, that's cool. I've got to check it out. I heard that Kelly was working on something like that and some other stuff, some really exciting other stuff coming. That's cool. Thank you for the super chat, Lane Berlin. Okay. Annie Kurtz. Don't forget to check the buttons and holes for cameras. Yes, absolutely. Selena Michelle. Hey, Aaron, thank you for all you do. Love my SPTV. Love the blue shirt. Thank you. Well, I hadn't worn this shirt since it had been washed, so I figured it was time to bust it out. Today was the day. And the other colors were just a little too wrinkly, and I didn't have enough time to iron them. So that's how we ended up with this was whole track suppression blue, I think. Thank you, Selena. Okay. Kubi rhymes with Ruby. Kubi-Roo. Honest question, because I'm confused. Was the letter you shared last night discovery or evidence from the trial? Both. It was a letter that had been admitted as an exhibit, as evidence in the trial. And it would have come up in discovery. Thank you for the question. Eva Bandana. Any chance that Danny will become PTS or be declared if the drama the Church of Scientology is creating for themselves ends up biting them in the butt? Hope the Jane Does win. That is actually something that would be occur. He would be declared PTS type B, which is criminal, and he would not be allowed to get Scientology auditing or do Scientology courses as long as he was considered a criminal. So there you go. Kimber Deuce Smythe. If you have time this weekend, try Knott's Chicken Diner Restaurant or Dinner Restaurant. I just might do that. We'll see. Thank you for the recommendation, Kimber. And Susan Chambly, just because I think you're awesome. Much love. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, look, we did it. We're at the end. Hide the comment. All right, everybody. That is my update for the evening. I am absolutely exhausted today. So this is probably, unless Zach gets a hold of me and says, yes, let's do a chat about this Vicky Podboreski brouhaha, then this is going to be it for me this evening. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. And I will talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,